Is everything a vibration? Everything vibrates, from the smallest quantum particles to the thoughts that shape our reality. What if understanding vibration isn't mysticism at all, but the key to mastering consciousness itself? In this episode, we explore the science and spirituality behind the vibrational reality. We dig into what the ancient traditions meant when they said everything is energy. Welcome to Higher Reality, at the edge of understanding. Conversation about metaphysics and what Ernest Holmes and Centers for Spiritual Living brought, and a lot of the metaphysicians of the 19th and 20th century that they brought.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it opens up a great door. And of course, everybody is always looking to figure out how to create their life in a different way.
Right.
And I think that that propels a lot of the energy around this topic. And I think a great place to start is this idea that Ernest Holmes had about, you got to focus yourself on what it is you want to create. And there were, like we said, there are others that brought that to the table as well. But I like the way he framed things.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree, and would add to that in the process of creating the life that you want, it's also remembering the aspects of your life that are important and what you believe in and what you stand for and what's important to you. Because all that figures into the mix as well. If you're unilaterally or single mindedly focusing on an outcome without looking at how that fits into your picture of the world or how you see yourself or how it all fits together, sometimes it misses. I'm looking at this thing where there's spiritual mind treatment is amazing. But when I see it really working, it's working because everything in me is aligned with it. It's not just that I'm declaring something to be so. It's that I am that thing. I am the one that can know that and have that and be that.
So
and that has made a real difference for me.
Talk about spiritual mind treatment for a second for those that aren't familiar with what that is.
Well, it's a 5-step treatment. Some might argue I've seen as many as 12. And Holmes actually had 3, but the general sentiment now is that there are 5 steps to a spiritual mind treatment. They are recognizing divine presence at whatever level you can understand the divine, state it and know it, and be in that knowing as you're doing this work, as you begin this work. The second step is kind of a rationalization that says, well, if God is everything, if God is all there is, that must be what I am. And if it's what I am, then I will speak from the authority of that divine. I will know myself as that. It's not an ego thing. It's a statement of understanding oneness. That's the second step. And that's where you declare it for yourself that you are that you are that presence. The third step is to simply know what it is that you're calling into your life, and not as a futuring of it, but to actually declare it as so in the moment. And the word I love to use for the third step is realization. It's simply a matter of realizing that something is so. You're not trying to create it. You're not trying to manipulate it. You're simply knowing it's so. And with clarity around that, you seal it by being grateful for it, because gratitude is the mind's little trick that says you already have it. We're really only grateful for what we have. So that's the fourth step of gratitude. And then you close it by letting it go, by not trying to micromanage it or control it or make it happen. So you've already known it, so you're complete. Let it go. And that's the fourth step, or the fifth step.
Fifth step, yeah. That's great. That's a good explanation of it. And I think it's a principle that draws a lot of people into the science of mind, and it drew me in back in the day. And I think the other thing that you're talking about is this whole personal growth thing has really developed over the last 50 years in ways it hadn't before. And so has, to a certain extent, metaphysics has. but it's the popularized version, I'll call it. The person like a Tony Robbins who gets up there and really lays it out, as
Mhm.
opposed to somebody who teaches it into a class, like an Ernest back in the 40s, a class of 10 or 15 people.
Right.
The popular version is all over the internet. It's astonishing how much is out there in terms of personal growth. And of course, this is just going to be another one added to the mix. But the other part of this is we want to talk about some of the science and why this works, and how does manifestation work, and why does treatment work. There's a little difference between the way you explain treatment and the idea of manifesting something out of being the equivalent of it. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Sure, the mental equivalent. That's an important part of the process to understand. I'm actually working on a it's not a class, it's more like a retreat format called Mastering Manifestation.
Mm,
And what I've discovered is that even as powerful as treatment is, that some people try to circumvent their consciousness by saying certain words and believing that in saying that it's going to create it. But that's
mhm,
not what creates it.
right.
The seed is something separate from the words. The words aren't the thing that's doing it. It's the consciousness that is doing it. And you cannot separate a part of your consciousness from the rest of your consciousness and expect that part you separated to suddenly be the point of manifestation and the rest of it to remain where it is.
Hmm.
It's all one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, which we need to get into late in another podcast, because when we start saying everything is all one thing, it starts getting pretty murky. But
You
let me
think that
let me
would be
put,
simplifying things or making them understandable, but I get what you're saying. It can be quite the opposite. This
yeah, yeah.
oneness thing conceptually just blows people's minds, and they don't have any idea what to do with that.
Exactly. And that goes to the idea of the idea of vibration having something to do with what you're creating. That the modern concept of vibration creates a like vibration, which brings them together, which is popularized by a number of people in the circuit. But in quantum physics, there's a lot of background to that, a
Oh yeah,
framework to it. And the basic framework to that is the fact that there's a quantum field, and in quantum physics we call it the quantum field theory. The
right,
quantum field theory is all about this idea of vibration, that electrons and photons and the other particles aren't actual particles, they're actual vibrations in a field, and matching the vibration of different manifest objects is part of how we perceive the world.
right, exactly,
And in fact, the world is our own from the perspective of our perceptions, because we have five senses. So the human being perceives the world through the five senses. So we've already changed what the world is into what our senses believe the world is.
right.
And then we top that off with our own consciousness of our own belief systems. And we're not seeing what we should be seeing.
Well, we're certainly not get where we would like to go. That's for sure.
And the vibration idea is that in personal growth, the idea is you got to set your vibration to what it is you want to create. I tell this story years ago that we were in St. Louis. My wife and I were in St. Louis visiting, and her mother wanted to go to Hawaii, and I was in between jobs, and I was like, I need to find a job. I don't want to go to
Right.
Hawaii and spend 3 weeks, and she wanted to spend a month there.
Oh,
And finally I relented, and we headed off to Hawaii. In the meantime, I'm going through a process in my own mind of what it is I want to create.
hmm,
And we get there, and they're doing all the tours and things, and I'm sitting out next to the swimming pool, imagining what I want my job to be. And I'm thinking, okay, I want the space to be physical space to be big, and I want to be able to look out a window and see the landscape of trees and so on and so forth. And I'm really putting all this into the detail of it.
Right.
And then, periodically the doubt would come up about, well, you're overdoing this. You're really nitpicking, and so on and so forth. And the other thing came in that if you doubt something, you have to spend a certain amount of time refreshing yourself until that doubt moves out. So I'm doing all this stuff.
Right.
After we were there about 3.5 weeks, my wife says, let's go up and visit the kids in Bellingham, Washington. And I'm going, I got to get back to St. Louis. I'm sure there's something waiting. And anyway, we go back up to Bellingham. I get there. The day we get there, they all go to dinner. And I said, I got to stay here. I feel like something else is going on. I need to focus. The phone rings about 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I shouldn't answer that, but I do. I answer the phone, and the person on the other side says, I'm looking for Larry DeRusha. And I go, well, who's calling? He says, you may not remember me, but I'm a headhunter. And I said, a what? He said, a headhunter, Jerry. And I said, oh, wow, I haven't talked to you in like 5 years. He said, well, I got something, and you're perfectly qualified for this. And he said, but you got to do the interview tomorrow. He said, so can you go from Bellingham? I said, I'm not in Bellingham except on a visit. So this is the perfect timing. Anyway, so I go to the interview. They said, great. Can you report tomorrow?
Ah!
And I'm going, oh, okay, fine. The next day I report out to Nike in Portland.
Okay.
And they said, we don't have any offices for you. We're going to put you in the conference room. So I'm up in the conference room, big table, looking out over a glass wall with the landscape.
Yeah, right. Just exactly what you outlined.
And I said, and one of the things that mixed in with that was I was qualified for that, but I'd get in early and people would come in to ask me what I'm doing. And I'd tell them the story of, the office and all that. And
right.
They'd say, well, we're interested in that kind of thing, this metaphysical stuff. Well, after about 3 months, I had a 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the morning group of 35 people wanting to know more about metaphysics.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That whole story is about a manifestation process.
Absolutely.
And how that vibration, I had to move out of that vibration of, I don't know what it is, the confusion of it, into solidifying what it is and matching what that was going to be.
Exactly. And that's how it works. Good for you.
That's how it works. And it worked for me. And that wasn't a process that was a specific one. It was kind of a combination of several.
Mm-hmm.
But it does fall into the realm of spiritual mind treatment in the sense of you got to know what it is you want. You have to feel it. You have to be it. You have to then make sure you're watching for it.
Always. And the idea that we started with me talking about the 5 steps of treatment, everything we do is treatment. Everything we think is treatment. If we believe what we're saying, we're impressing that into the mind of the divine, and it's causing a response to occur. The law of spirit is responding and sending something our way. And moment to moment, we can change our mind or have a different complete thought, and all of that continues to change. But truly, we're creating our lives with every thought, with every word we say, without exception. And it really is all about energy. It's about how we function in that energy of life and what we do with it. And if we allow ourselves to be distracted by outside physical things or ideas that concern us, we're distracting ourselves from getting where it is we want to go. So it's really a discipline of setting all that stuff away and focusing on where we want to be, and then allowing life to connect us with that place of being. Yeah. It's quite fascinating, and it has worked over and over again. But I find that when I'm centered and clear about it, I get there quickly. And when I'm not, I run into all kinds of distractions and detours and things that make it harder to get there. And that's still all me. It's not that it's something else or someone else. I'm doing all of that.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily it's all the mind that's doing it.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that came up for me was this heart math study that I've talked about a couple of times. That heart math study was really powerful, where there's an energy field, and this goes back to Einstein: matter equals energy. There's
First spiritual teacher was all about energy. He called it subtle energy, and what it was the energy you're talking about, that field around the heart.
Yeah.
And he would talk about all of the 7 energy centers of the body, and how that we actually don't consciously, but they're used to exchange energy with other beings, and that
the chakras.
the chakras, exactly. And some people don't like that word because it's Indian. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But they're points of where portals where energy can flow in and out, and
Yeah.
that we use those all the time. And that if we want to communicate with someone clearly,
Yeah.
that we match their energy. So
Yeah.
if their emotional energy is in a difficult place, they're struggling. We don't have to struggle, but we can match the intensity of that. And what will happen is we'll immediately get their attention and be able to communicate more directly. And what I learned from him, was that when you have someone who's in a difficult place, they're depressed, or they're angry, or they're struggling somehow, that if you go to that level of intensity of energy, that you can actually bring them up into a lighter energy. And the difference between emotions is simply that they're all energy, and they simply vibrate at a different rate.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. It's the same energy. It's not like there are different energies. It's that the energy just vibrates differently.
The only difference between an electron or a proton and a quark is the energy,
Yeah,
and it's the vibration.
vibration, exactly.
And vibration is all. And of course, string theory is very popular now, has been for the last 20
Right.
years,
Right.
as to, everything in the universe is a vibration. It's just the mathematics that hasn't quite gotten to the place to where it can figure out how you do that in anything less than 12 dimensions. But it's totally true that everything is vibration. We're finally getting to the point where the average person on the street now understands, yeah, everything is a vibration. It's an energy. We're not quite sure how that works, or
what to
it's
do with that
about.
information.
Yeah. So the idea in personal growth about manifesting what you want. I know when we first get people into classes, it's all about, I want a new job, or like I was doing, I want a new job, I want a new relationship, I want a new this. It's all exterior related.
Right.
And we're pretty clear in the world now that exterior is secondary to interior.
Totally.
And so Ernest and all the others brought up this whole idea that we have to work on ourselves.
Right.
How do you see that?
Well, what I understand about it, this idea of internal and external, is we have to begin by understanding that we are in control not only of the conditions of our lives, but the energy of our lives. That we're creating that energetic field around us. And it's our job to create it in a way that allows us to move forward with what we want in our lives. You can't be angry or afraid and expect to get the things that you'd like to have in your life. You have to be in a different state of joy or optimism or enthusiasm. You have to be somewhere where you can receive that, where that's open to come to you. It's not like you can have this hardness in your life and then expect some lightness to show up. It won't. You're going to draw to you what you're putting out. So the first rule is be happy. If you want things to change in your life, don't weigh yourself down with heavy energy. Lighten up.
Yeah, but
Cool.
that's not an easy thing to do when you're in that down place, to think of getting myself into joy.
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
Because one of my first experiences, I'm going back to Australia with all this. One of my first experiences was that I in a meeting with a group of colleagues, they didn't like what I'd done, or one in particular didn't like what I'd done, and was pretty berating to me, and I was bummed. And this was on an afternoon, and we were going to have a session with a bunch of us that night. And I came into it with this, oh, everybody's picking on me. This is so hard, and all of that. And you could just see it. It was like it was all around me, and people were keeping their distance. And I had the responsibility that particular night to present some information to the group. And so I got up there, and I was still in that state. And it occurred to me, oh, you're going to screw this up royally if you keep this up. Lighten it up. And so I did. I made this major shift right in front of everybody. And you could see the room shift. You know, the response to me was brilliant. It was like everyone, oh, yeah, I can relate to you now. And it all shifted. And after I got off, the person that had berated me came over and said, I really screwed up earlier doing that. That would not have happened if I had held on to that sense of being a victim, if I thought that I had been abused or whatever the silliness was. The truth was that I was fine, and that what she was going through had nothing to do with me. So that you can talk yourself through it, but it's like you got to have a good stern talking to yourself and go, wait a minute, this isn't working. Let's try something different, and shift your affect. Shift it to something that will work. And what will happen when you do that is you'll immediately or very quickly see something shift in your world. A phone call will come in. You'll read something. You'll see something on TV, and you go, oh yeah, this is better. And you stay there. But you're right. You go back to that. It becomes habitual in human beings to think about what didn't work. I heard a line from a colleague once at a conference where he said, a minister gets up and gives this great speech. They put it all out there. And then they go through the receiving line. They stand in the receiving line. Everybody comes by and tells them how great they were, except this one person that says, I didn't like your talk today. And the colleague that was giving this talk said, and who do you take home to bed that night?
Yeah.
You take home the critic. Because you can't quite let it go.
Well, we're hardwired that way. Yeah, we're hardwired that way. Our reptilian brain is always looking for the negative threat, and it's going to find it, and then it's going to try and predict what's going to happen. And once it tries to predict what's going to happen, it's going to start creating that.
Right. Except that all that happens habitually and unconsciously.
Right.
And so what we have to do when we see it happening is, wait a minute. This is not what I want. This is not where I want to go, and shift it.
Yeah.
You really can. And it all starts with emotional energy. It starts with saying, this is not going to work. I'm going to do something different. And you lighten it up, and then conditions begin almost immediately to change.
Yeah. And again, we come back to, it's the vibration. You can say the words, but if the vibration of what you're talking about doesn't match, then it's not going to create. What it's going to do is it's going to put you in confusion. You're confused. And that's one of the things about this toroidal field that we have. It reacts depending upon how the heart reacts. And we just don't quite understand this magnificent thing called the heart. And in the Hindu tradition, the physical heart is not the heart we're talking about. It is in terms of the field. But actually what's right next to it, right to the right of the heart, is the spiritual heart. And once you get to a high vibration, you can see a little blue light which glows there.
Yeah.
And that's what creates all of this. That's what's doing the work. And neuroscience backs this up when they look at what's going on, for example, with the heart and the brain and how they work. So I reach for this bottle of water, right? But actually, before I reached for the bottle of water, there was an electrical input that started in that heart region, went into the brain. The brain starts the work. The synapses and the neurons are going. And then I reach for the bottle of water.
Right.
So which came first, my desire for the bottle of water, or was the heart actually doing the work first?
Or is the heart the point of initiating desire?
Good question.
I've learned that there are most of the neurons in our body are in our brain, but the second largest collection of them is in the heart.
And the third is in the gut.
There it is. Exactly. Exactly.
I have a gut intuition.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have this gut feeling.
Yeah.
That's not just cliche. That's a real thing.
Oh yeah. There was at Stanford University, there was a class called Creativity in Business. And in that class, we would hear from CEOs, from all over the world in big companies. And they would all say, well, it was a gut. I had this gut feeling about this. I had a gut feeling about that. And what they were talking about, and they would agree, it's intuition, but you can't stand before a board and tell them your intuition just worked this way. You have to tell them, yeah, I had this gut feeling. They all know what that means.
And if we'll allow ourselves to feel those things and identify the information that's coming forth from that, that's incredibly useful.
Yeah.
That's the difference between just using your five senses or actually having this additional resource of information that's truly unlimited. Your senses can only bring in so much, even though they do bring in incredible amounts of data points from your vision and your hearing and everything else. But your intuition is even greater. It has a greater pool of information to draw from.
Yeah.
But you gotta not deny it. I mean, how many times in your life, I know it's happened in mine, where I had that gut feeling and I went, nah, I got this, or had some other response. And then sure enough, that thing was like, if I just paid attention, if I just listened and acted on that, I would have had an entirely different outcome. But denying it, and then all of a sudden I'm in some kind of a quagmire. It's learning how to learn from more than you're thinking.
Yeah. I call that unlearning.
That's good. That's a good name for it.
Yeah. And I just finished rewriting a book on intuition. It's called Intuit. And the whole idea here is exactly what you're talking about. But we tend not to put faith in that unseen thing that's going on because it goes beyond the rational mind.
Right.
And
so the rational mind rejects it.
Exactly. It goes, no, that doesn't make sense. Turn left here. No. So, and it's the one thing that most people in the workshop in St. Louis that I just completed week before last, I did one on intuition. Almost to a person, they all believed in intuition, but almost to a person, none of them followed it.
That's great.
And they agreed to it. Oh yeah, I understand I'm not doing what it says, because it's not until afterwards I experienced that was correct.
Right.
I said,
so
but
I have an analogy that speaks to that directly. Yeah. So you're driving in your car and you've turned on your Google Maps, and the Google Maps says, turn here, go this way. And you go, that's not the fastest way to get there. I know how to get there. I'm going this way. Yeah. And before long, you're in the traffic that's stopped because of an accident or something that you didn't know about. But Google Maps knew about it. They didn't tell you about it. They just said, turn here.
Yeah.
So and so I've had to train myself to not disagree with my Google Maps because I think I know better. And
I have an exception to that.
Google Maps is the perfect metaphor for intuition. It knows things that I consciously don't know. And it wants me to have that information, but I got to be willing to accept it.
I'm going to take issue with that to a certain extent, which is this. So my wife is traveling from St. Louis to Denver, Colorado. No, she was in LA. And so she's in LA and she gives me a call and she says, I don't know what's going on. I got the rental car and I got Google Maps and it says, get off the highway. And I get off the highway and then it says, take this road. And I take the road and then it says, get on the highway. I've just backtracked 4 miles. And then I'm back on the highway. And she said, I've done that 3 times. And I said, use your intuition because it doesn't recognize that there's been a change that's happened yet.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've never had that happen with Google Maps.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I've never had that one happen.
And so it also says we need to update our Google Maps periodically.
Apparently so. Apparently so.
Yeah. But
That's
you're
very
right. It's a learning process, and also I think when we're going through this process of manifestation, we need to do what they call signs and wonders. And I have a great little story about that too. Very quick. We're in Marin County, and California, and we're looking for an office for the church, and my wife and I are looking for a place to live. And I did this manifestation process with about 4 or 5 people.
Mhm.
Afterwards, I'm driving up the highway, and there's a pickup truck right in front of me, a state pickup truck, and it's got a bunch of signs on it. And one of them says detour, and it came off the back of the bed, and it dropped on the highway right in front of me and bounced over the car, and
It didn't hit you?
didn't hit me, bounced right over the car. And I reacted by getting off the highway. Right at that moment, there was an exit. I got off the highway.
Right.
And when I finally was able to pull over, I go, wow, that's crazy. Well, 3 months later, we had an office on that same street, and
Right.
we own a house out further on that same street. Signs was literal. I can't get your attention any other way. I'll give it to you this way.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
That we could create that kind of drama to
Yeah.
get our attention.
Get our own
Move from
attention by
the
doing something.
unconscious or subconscious to the conscious.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea for people that are tuning in and listening to all this, what's something that we can give to them? Is there a meditation? Is there a treatment? Something we can say, follow this and see what happens afterwards. Got any ideas on that?
I have a ton of ideas on that.
Good.
I'm not sure I can lay all that out right now, but this is kind of what I'm working on right now, is this idea that if we want our life to be fulfilling, we shouldn't do it piecemeal, moment by moment, deciding what we want, that we should.
Yeah.
And it's not that we need an absolute plan, but we need to have a foundation. And a lot of people don't work from a foundation. They just work from desire.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that I'm working on are teaching people how to identify their purpose, to be able to state it, articulate it easily, simply, and concisely, and then to identify their primary values. These are the most important things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And from there to move into ideas on how you believe life works. Who are the people that are the models in your life? Who do you revere and respect for the way they live their lives? And what do they teach you by being who they are? And then I had this other thing that I learned actually from Tony Robbins, which is a statement of how I want my life to be. And my statement goes like this: I no longer indulge in the debilitating act of self-judgment, which in the past I used to deny the absolute perfection of my life. Instead, I accept and embrace the beauty and magnificence of my life now. I say that to myself every day to remind myself that when I get self-critical, I'm losing. I'm retreating. I'm falling back. I'm failing. That I must see myself as the powerful spiritual being that I am if I'm going to get where I want to go. So that's one step. These are all the steps that I do every day. And really it only takes me between 10 and 15 minutes every day to do. I have my list of outcomes for the year. I have a 2-page gratitude letter that I read every day. And it's being grateful for what's already in my life and grateful for what's coming. I do all of that and end it with some poetry that just holds me in a place of knowing I'm on my path. So I do all those things every day. It took me years to put it all together, but it truly only takes probably 11, 12 minutes to go through every day. But it reminds me in the morning when I'm fresh that this is what my life is about. And when I do that, my day goes magnificently well. And on the days that I go, I don't have time for that right now, things don't go as well. And it's pretty consistent.
Great.
So that's the thing that I want to bring to people in the next few years, is this way of really supercharging and honing your skill of how to manifest. Once you've done that work, once I do that work in the morning, then I do my spiritual mind treatment. Having
Yeah.
all those thoughts in my mind, I speak my life into words, knowing that who I am is something extraordinary.
Yeah.
Everyone is extraordinary. Everyone has incredible power and ability to create their lives. The challenge is that most people don't remember that.
Yeah, and it is a remembrance because that's how we start out. We are that as a baby. We're
Exactly.
infinite.
Oh yeah.
And everything from that point on is a learning. And
Or as you said earlier, an unlearning.
yeah, well, it's learning, which later on in life we have to unlearn
Yeah.
because it's all programmed into us.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the what you laid out is fascinating. I think also, even if you do nothing more than say 5 minutes of just closing your eyes and becoming peaceful,
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to be in a nice peaceful state, that helps. And I think in some of the future episodes, we'll do some of that work so that people
Good.
can follow it. And I think also the thing that uh, the Eastern meditation work and all has brought me to the understanding of, in the teachings, has brought me to the understanding that we have totally been drummed out of ourselves the idea that we are a manifestation of the one, and that's all. And so, as a manifestation of that, it's saying the mind and the body is not who we are, that the mind and the body is the vehicle through which the spirit, which is that oneness, works through us. When we realize that, that infinite flows out into the world right in front of us.
I want to play with your words a little bit.
Yeah.
A few years back, it occurred to me that most everybody I know says, I am a manifestation of spirit. And what has come to me is that doesn't work for me. What works for me is that I am spirit manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using, as the divine, I am using my body, I'm using my mind, I am using my emotional field to create this life on earth.
Yeah.
But that I do not depart from my divinity to do that. That I am not a manifestation, because a manifestation exists at the point of effect.
Right.
I'm at cause.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect way of framing it, because it gives the understanding of you're coming from what you are as
Exactly.
opposed to what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I see myself as something less than that, then my ability to create that is limited.
Yeah, exactly. And then we go through the unlearning again.
There's a line I often, not always, but I often use in my treatment work in my second step. That's the step to recognize that we are that presence.
Mhm.
I end it by saying, and I speak with the authority of the divine. My
Yeah.
word is God's word. And
Yeah.
that seems to shift my consciousness, and I think impresses upon the mind, the universal mind, that I mean it. Do what I say.
You are it.
Right, exactly.
You can't be separate from it. It has to be you. So all you're doing is talking to the manifest world out there of what you already are.
Right. And the only
So
one that really needs to hear it is me.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not praying to anything.
yeah. Well, I talk to myself often.
Well, good for you. It's working. It's working.
So I want to come back just for a second and kind of recap a little bit about this idea of quantum physics, which is popularized today, and what we're talking about in metaphysics, and the idea of this quantum field theory. And quantum field theory being that everything is vibration. Now, we know Einstein's principle, E equals mc squared. Matter equals energy.
Right.
And in addition to that, we have this whole idea of vibration. Vibration is from string theory, promotes the idea that things are all vibrating. Everything is a vibration. Your body is actually a vibration. The world around you, all of them are different frequencies and different
Exactly.
movements. And those movements create, for example, an electron, or it creates the Empire State Building. And we see out there these vibrations in a way that work for our perceptions, for our eyes, our ears, and so on. But in the example that I like to use, that's not the real world. The real world is out there.